Alright folks, hosts here, welcome back to another Poem Master video, and as requested by viewers, we're gonna go ahead and rank all the strikers that don't have grids in the game at the moment. And you know, as to the ones that are slightly better and ones that are slightly worse. So, it is rather interesting because like most ungridded strikers, a lot of them aren't like really used anymore, just because again, synchros are just so powerful in this game. Like even like the worst strikers with a sync grid, like even with like a terrible sync grid, as long as you just get like a move gauge regen on like your moves and like plus 4 or 5 extra power, like it just makes you like just leapfrog over like 80% of like the non-sync gridded Pokemon, right? So yeah, but there are still like quite a few units that are still decent and usable, definitely usable. Like for example, like Blue, Blue's a good example. Like Blue isn't like, it's not objectively like a really powerful unit in a vacuum, but like in the circumstances that it's in, I mean, it's the only flying type, and it's still really good, just because it excels in that tier, right, of its own. So yeah, let's get into this. So before I actually talk about all this stuff, a few criterias for ranking these. First of all, obviously we're just gonna rank these on the most relevant content, which means not co-op. Just basically, Battleville, Legendary Arena, Full Force Battle, all that stuff. How much, how powerful they are in those kind of scenarios. And since it's single player, we're gonna assume all these stats are gonna get maxed out, right? Special attacks, attack, whatever, what crit, all that stuff. Everyone's gonna get stat boost, because if you're not boosting your Pokemon, like, what are you doing? You should bring supports. You should boost them. There's like 0 point. There's just no point talking about a unit on its own, right? Like there's no point talking about like Machamp with all like Machamp's like self buffs. Like if you're gonna bring Machamp, you're gonna use supports. Even with units that do have like full self-sufficient support stuff, like Sceptile, that gives itself like +6 special attack and attack and crit, right? You're still gonna bring supports because supports make it much more efficient to use it, right? So anyways, let's get into this. So we're just gonna go in this order, whatever this order is. But yeah, let's talk about the first one, Sceptile. This is in S tier still. Oh yeah, also we are going to assume that they have their best, or I wouldn't say best, but more so optimal lucky skills in place as well. Even though, again, I personally don't advocate for using lucky cookies on units that don't have sync grids yet. But again, we're just doing this in this way, right? Just gonna assume they're all at their best. So Sceptile, obviously still very powerful. If you give it Dauntless, Leaf Storm doesn't decrease in power, and Leaf Storm has what, 136 or something? Yeah, 136 power. At 1 out of 5, obviously 90% accuracy, which again can be fixed with an accuracy buffer. Bring Lisa with it, and boom, your Leaf Storm is just golden, right? Also saves you a dark hit plus as well. And as for its stats, it has good special attack stats, right? And solid attack too, which you could use Bullet Seed. Swap between special and physical. There are some scenarios where you actually do want to use Bullet Seed over Leaf Storm. Kind of rare, but there are scenarios, so there's that as well. Nothing else to really talk about. Sceptile pretty straightforward, right? Moving on to Chandler. Chandler, probably gonna put it down in C tier. Chandler is slightly problematic. It's just not that good. It gets like outclassed, right? Like Chandler, what it does have is it has like solid special attack stats. It's pretty standard otherwise. Like, sure, Hex is nice if you do have the opponent affected by a status condition. Shadow Ball is just Shadow Ball. It just doesn't have anything extremely interesting going for it, right? It's a standard striker, and it does what it does, and it just doesn't do anything, that puts it over the top, right? Moving on, Arbok. Arbok, I'm probably gonna put it in D tier. Arbok does suffer from stat issues, and again, for all the units, we are gonna assume them to be at 5-star as well. Arbok, just like even at 5-star, does have like severe like stat deficiencies, which is slightly sad, right? Goes up to 283. Otherwise, like Arbok is fine for the most part. Like with Toxic Power up 5, like Arbok, you could do really good damage. It just takes some time to set up, just because you do have to land that poison. So either like you build a team around it, giving it poison chance, or like you have to like pray for that 30% chance to like hit early. Obviously, it's probably better to like build a team with poison, but then that takes away the slot where you probably use something else instead, right? So that's Arbok, I guess. Rampardos is down here. There's no point using like Rampardos is just really bad in this meta. It's much better in places like, for example, like Rayquaza's co-op battles was the perfect place to use Rampardos actually. And in those places it does very well. Unfortunately, in Belleville, where you probably want to, want a bit more sustainability. You don't want your striker to die, for one. Same thing with Legendary Arena, right? Rampardos obviously does not do well, and you'll see this as like sort of a theme. Recall units generally don't do too well in this meta anymore. Next one, Solrock. Solrock's actually, you might be surprised if you've like never cared about Solrock ever. Like Solrock has has insanely good stats for what it is, right? At 5-star, like it's almost 400 attack. Unfortunately, what does hold it back is the 2-gauge moves. It has two gauge moves, and also like really bad speed. It has good defenses. Like it's weird. Also Power Chain 3 is really good in co-op, but obviously again we're not really talking about co-op. It just really gets limited by its 2-gauge moves. If it had like 1 3-gauge move, it'd be much better, right? But unfortunately it's not. And well, here we are, I guess. It does have one thing though. One other thing, it does have like both Psychic and Rock type covers. Although these two are kind of far, like they're not in like the same set, unfortunately. So it doesn't like, it's not like that good, but it's okay, I guess. Moving on, Machamp. Machamp is nice. Throw Machamp in B tier. Machamp has like a slight issue with cross chop, which does cross chop has lower accuracy, but again, like I mentioned before, you could obviously just fix that with an accuracy buffer on your team. Either Sabrina or Singing Elise or something like that. Its kits really works really well because cross chop, you only need like dire hit once, and then you start like hitting stuff really quick, right? Because you just won like +2 crit, then like you're just at 100% crit on your cross chop. Obviously, you probably want +1 crit again, which is why it really works well with Elisa. So you get like +3 crit, so you have 80% chance of crit on your sync move. But also with that, you also get crit strike too. So paired with its I wouldn't say decent, I guess, attack stat. It could output a lot of damage. Does have some weaknesses, which is its speed, but it has good, well, I wouldn't say good, okay-ish defenses and decent HP to make up for it. So there's that, I guess, and doesn't really have too many drawbacks for a fighting type Pokemon, which is kind of, it's not the most common thing in the world for fighting types. Once you do again get the accuracy fixed. Moving on, Blue Mega Pidgeot. Mega Pidgeot like just hits like a truck, right? Like it's like stats are like, its special attack is crazy. Hurricane hits incredibly hard, and especially nowadays where getting to like its biggest issue before was that it takes forever to get to Mega because in the old days co-op was meta. Now that single players in meta, you get to like Mega almost instantly. That's like just not an issue at all anymore, right? And then Hurricane 126 again, actually you could fix with your own thing. You could sing to Lisa to top it off so you guarantees your Hurricane doesn't miss, right? It's just very powerful. It just takes 3 turns setup, which is again not a big deal anymore. Like honestly, you could throw like blue Mega Pidgeot is like borderline S. If you want to put an S, that's fine as well, right? Yeah, so there's that as well. Moving on, Beedrill, Mega Beedrill, probably gonna put it in D. Beedrill has a lot of really great things going for it, actually, right? It does have Fell Stinger, which like gives you like +3 attack every time you take out a unit, opponent's unit with it, right? So like if you start hitting the sides first, which you probably should do anyways, you get like +6 attack like almost instantly. Beedrill does have a fatal flaw. Oh, and also like Mega Beedrill's attack is like insanely high, by the way, for those who don't know. Right, 5-star Mega Beedrill's attack 440, right? That's just insanity. Huge drawback, you don't have any good moves, unfortunately. Yeah, you have a small chance to poison resolve, so there's that, could add to your damage, but also crit strike too. But like, it's just that like it just doesn't do much damage. But it's still not like terrible, right? It's still not terrible. Moving on to the next one, we have Lycanroc. Lycanroc could also kind of sort of be an A. Also borderline S as well. Like again, kind of with blue as a, it's the difference really there, honestly, right? Living Lycanroc, pretty straightforward, really good physical attack. Is it like 401 or is it like 410 or something? Physical attack, can't really remember. Let's see, 401 attack. Has amped up, right, which is a great move. If you do use its own trainer move, which is like, its trainer move is really, really good. And like sometimes, like, you know, for other units, it's most of the time like you would probably want to use like a support instead of their own trainer moves, but like for Olivia, it's kind of hard to like find something that could really replace that. So you know, that does both of those in like one single move. So it's probably still better to use Hard as Diamonds, but again, the huge drawback, sharply lower specialty events, which really sucks, unfortunately. But it does have like okay-ish specialty events, but like after you sharply lower them, you're still just gonna get either one shot or two shot by you know, special sync moves, which is a slight issue. Again, Olivia still does like good damage. It just has that one fatal drawback, unfortunately. Moving on, again, you can still put an S. A doesn't really matter, right? Moving on to the next one, Ho is an easy S. Again, like I mentioned before, it's probably the best all-around legendary that they've given us so far. It just does like a billion things. It does really good damage. Sets up Unlimited Sun, which is honestly one of the most overpowered like things. Like fire types are just so good in this game, and like setting up Unlimited Sun is just like so broken. It just makes fire types overall just so much more broken than they already are, right? Stuff like Hilda, Red, Torkoal, right? And it's not only fire types, a lot of other units use Sun as well. Also has a chance to burn. Again, 2 gauge, really quick move coverage, right? If both fire, grass. Ho's just amazing. Moving on, Avalok is pointless. As a 2 gauge move that does like 75 damage, but it also takes 2 turns to use it. It also has like the chance to like burn, but like you have to have the opponent hit you, and like its defenses are actually really bad. So you kind of don't want your opponents to hit you anyways. You'd have a trainer move that like increases your defenses, so you could maybe take a hit. Also draws aggro, but again, I don't know if you really want to take a hit. It's not that great, unfortunately. It is what it is, I guess. Anyways, move on to Pincer. Pincer will probably throw in B as well. Pincer is fine overall. Pincer's just kind of unconventional a bit, because generally you do want to use Fury Cutter, and if you are using Fury Cutter, you have to build like a team around it, right? So, you know, Eevee's a very, very, very good partner for Pincer in that sense. It is kind of team oriented. Kind of depends on the team, and depends on what stage you're fighting. But Pincer could be good, right? Pincer's really bad in like shorter stages, but Pincer obviously gets, you know, so much better when you're fighting much longer stages, right? And again, team comp, like you could throw like another striker or like heavy gauge user with it, and you would be fine as well, right? It's very, very versatile, still really good. Moving on, Rayquaza. Again, do keep in mind we are accounting for lucky, skilled, and stuff. So if that's the case, then Rayquaza could honestly be in B. Like I know we joke on Rayquaza a lot. Rayquaza's the worst legendary, and it is still the worst legendary, unfortunately. But if you objectively look at it, when we're not also comparing it to like other units, when we're not comparing it to Haxorus, not comparing it to Kingdra, right? We're just looking at as it is as a unit. Since also has 320 out of 20, 387 attack and 387 special attack is insanely good. Really, really, you know, solid HP for a striker as well, right? Good defenses, which obviously get lowered if you use this trainer move, but you don't really have to use this trainer move. Like, who cares? Like, this trainer move is kind of whatever. Unless you like want to remove confuse, flinch, and all that stuff. That's always nice, I guess. But like you're just not gonna get targeted by that since you're like striker. So like its trainer move is like pointless, honestly. Yeah, I don't know why you would use this ever. Like you just use like supports instead. Yeah, if you give it a lucky skill with either clear-headed or dauntless for Draconite, it depends which one you want to run, right? It's up to you. Or honestly, let's be real, it's whichever one you roll first on your lucky cookies, right? It still does very, very good damage. Again, both Draconite are 136 power and Outrage 115. All very, very high damaging moves. Weather Surge 3, extra 30% damage if there's weather up as well. So, like, Rayquaza's damage is actually good when you're not comparing it to Kingdra and or Haxorus, right? Obviously, Kingdra Haxorus just, like, blows it out of the water. But when you're not comparing them, it's still good. It's still good. Moving on, Zipstriker probably enough, unfortunately. Again, recoil units, they're just bad, I guess, overall. Like, Zipstriker, you get, like, 1 or 2 really, like... I guess the only, like, optimal way of running Zipstriker in this meta, right, is just to, like, run it by using Spark. You also get, like, a chance to paralyze your opponent, I guess. And, like, Zipstriker does have some good stuff, right? It does have really good HP. Its stats are solid. 306 attack is kind of whatever nowadays. Like, back then it was really good. Nowadays it's kind of and good speed as well. Which, like, if you want to run it as, like, a Sparky, but then again, it's, like, a 2-gauge, and then, like, Electric type's not that great of a type as well, unfortunately, so there's just nothing for Zipstriker. Fast Track 2 is great, but, yeah, you just don't have too much, like, if you want, like, maybe E, but you could also, like, sort of make an E argument for, like, all the other F tiers as well, so, we'll just put it down here, I guess. E tier is just like clearly better, unfortunately. Anyways, Dragonite's an easy S. Even though it's synchroned, yes. Because here's the thing with Dragonite. Again, we are talking about with full supports, with potentially lucky skills as well, right? Hyper Beam is just like Hyper Beam's busted. It just does like so much damage, and like it's not just Hyper Beam. It's like, or it's not just a 4-gauge move. It is a normal type 4-gauge move that has Dragon Shift, which makes it so much better. And also it does have Potion as well, so it also has utility not only as a striker, plus it has like insanely high special attack as well. Hyper Beam 223, almost as much as a sync move, right? So yeah, very powerful. Although, like, one annoying thing about Dragonite is, like, Hyper Beam is special, yet your, like, sync move is, like, physical, just because, like, you also have Dragon Claw. So, like, when you're buffing it, like, you might honestly just, like, skip buffing its physical, so then it's, like, sync move's not going to do that much damage. But again, the cons don't outweigh the pros in this case, right? So, there you go, there's Dragonite. Moving on. Sogolay is also very, very powerful. Sogolay probably has one of the strongest physical moves in the game, being Sunsteel Strike. Sunsteel Strike ignores, damage reducing effects from the opponent's side of the field, all that stuff. Ignores passives that will protect against crit and all that stuff. Opponents can't endure it. Sunsteel Strike, again, like I mentioned before, very, very powerful. 100% accuracy as well. All that stuff. Again, with supports, like it's like the drawback is, 3-gauge. Trainer, but again, with Gauge Support, run with Rosa or whatever, this is not an issue at all. And also has, again, type coverage, as all the legendaries do. Steel and Fighting. Focus Blast, also very, very powerful move as well. 142 power, right? And you don't have to worry about the accuracy, all that stuff. Impervious. And again, at 20 out of 20, also has really good defensive stats, right, for a striker as well. So to get those, like, almost, like, 200 defenses for a striker, this is very, very good. Also, really high attack as well. Good HP. So Sogolay is, like, honestly criminally underrated as a striker. Sometimes, right? People do forget that. So, anyways, moving on. Psychic is easy. Normal type. Recoil. Don't need to really talk more about it. Conkeldurr probably put it in D. Conkeldurr is slightly problematic. Drain Punch does slightly less damage than your run-the-mill 3-gauge moves would do, but it does like give you some HP back, which is, I guess, a decent trade. One of the like killer things, like the one things that's just like destroy the unit, like look at that speed. 127 speed is borderline unacceptable, honestly. But you know, everything else is fine. Gritty 5 is pointless. Yeah, not really good, unfortunately. Moving on to Roserade. Roserade is basically it's basically Sceptile, right? If you give it Dauntless as well, support, give it, you know, plus special attack, all that stuff. Although that's not the optimal way to use it, but if you are trying to damage cap Roserade, then yeah, you could do that. And Roserade does basically almost identical damage to Sceptile. Except again, its training moves and all that stuff aren't as good. But again, it's not like that big of an issue if you are considering lucky skills and all that stuff, and using the supports. It's slightly wasteful, but it still does like parallel damage to Sceptile. It just does like slightly less damage than Sceptile. So again, very good. Moving on, Mismagius. Mismagius probably down here as well. Oh, not there. Over here. Mismagius does a lot of good damage. Obviously for, you know, special Ghost Striker. Obviously better than Driftbloom even, right? And all that stuff. Bulk, a lot of people do kind of forget that Mismagius does have Bulk Buster 4, which is, you know, which increases its damage by so much, right? So it's a very, very powerful unit. Does a lot of damage. It doesn't do anything extremely special, but it does a lot of damage, which is good enough. Right, so yeah, there we go. That's Mismagius, I guess. Moving on, Typhlosion. Another semis. I know, again, haha, Ethan, bad, Ethan, what a meme, right? But if we're being real, Ethan is definitely not the worst 5-star striker. And again, it's like, again, we're not comparing these like to, you know, other units that do like kind of outclass them, that do the same thing. We're not doing that. And in that case scenario, Ethan is actually solid. We could honestly give Ethan a solid B. Like, I know. Haha, Ethan, what a meme. I get it. But if you look at Ethan in a vacuum, it's actually not bad. Ethan has a lot of really, really good stuff going for it. This is very, very bad. However, it does make up for it in some ways. First Eruption does a lot of good damage. 135 power, which is very, very solid. And again, a lot of people say, oh yeah, you get hit once and then like it's 80%, right? Which is very, very true. Like you get hit once and then like you're at 80%. You're at 80% damage, right? If you're at 50%, then you're basically like GG, right? But you know, you could save your Stoke the Fire, which does recover HP. So every time you like fall under 50%, you could do, you know, Stoke the Fire, and then as long as, honestly, if you don't fall under like 40%, you can always Stoke the Fire and like just heal back up to max, which you get 100% of the damage. Because like an 100% eruption is very, very powerful, right? Like no one can deny that 100% eruption is like insanely good. However, like if you do fall under that, again, you get Stoke the Fire, get it back, but like if you fall over 40%, then you can't get back to max. But again, back to the point about the 80% thing. 80% of 135 times 0.8 is still, I pressed the wrong button. It's still 108 damage. 108 damage is what, more than Psychic, still more than, you know, all that's more than Earthquake, right? So as long as you don't fall out like under 50%, you're good. And also one other thing, it also has Speeding Sun, and because it's a fire type, it does get the benefit of having Sun up, right? If you run it with Ho-Oh, you get Sun with Ethan, unlimited Sun with Ethan, so that's always an extra 50% boost to all your attacks, which again, you know, haha, bad special attack, but you know, 50% boost to that with a very, very powerful move. It's still very, very good. Again, it does have those drawbacks, which is why it's not higher. So it's here with Rayquaza, which is you know, the two meme strikers are in the same tier, which is kind of fitting. But again, it's not I really don't think it's anything worse than that. Moving on to Scolipede. Scolipede we could put it in C. Scolipede is okay. It's just like Scolipede. If we're like comparing to like Chandler, they're really similar. Like they're okay, they're solid strikers, but they don't do like anything special, right? Scolipede again does have some really nice upsides, really good speed, right? Which I do like a lot personally. Solid defense as well, especially it's kind of whatever. Attack is fine. The attack stat is fine. You know, it's decent. And then you also like poison jab. Unfortunately, it's kind of like Marshall, but it's obviously better than Marshall. Because I like because of all the other stuff, like Marshall's, again, the thing that kills Marshall is like terrible speed. Scolipede has so much better speed, right? And poison is generally more widely used because you're a striker. You're not going to target too much. Although again, you know, healing is nice, but poison jab is just overall a better move. Fast track got that as well. Again, Scolipede's just really solid sync pair. Moving on to T-Tar. T-Tar, we could put it here as well. T-Tar, you generally use it for like rock slide flinches and stuff. You don't really use it as a striker. As far as like offensive stats, it's not the worst, right? It's decent. It's over 300, barely over 300, 301. But it's still good. Again, rock slide is a good move. 105 damage with also moderate chance of flinch. That's AoE flinch, right? So that's very good. Again, you know, it doesn't have the best damage, but it's okay. And also really bad speed. But unlike Conkeldurr, it's so much more useful, right? So there's that, I guess. Moving on, Sylveon could be in here, but since it's fairy and it's like the only fairy striker, we could put it here, I guess. Sylveon just doesn't do any damage, unfortunately. It just doesn't do damage at all. Like two gauge moves, you know, its special attacks doesn't like make up for it or whatever. Draining Kiss on a striker is kind of irrelevant, all that stuff. It's unfortunate. Moving on. Cbad. Cbad, we could maybe, it's borderline D and C, right? Cbad, again, just doesn't have really good like offensive moves, unfortunately. It's Aura Sphere and Water Pulse, if I remember correctly. It has a very good trainer move. Probably one of the best trainer moves in the game. I wouldn't say the best, but it's definitely up there, right? Its trainer move is really good. Not only does it heal you, it also gives you gradual heal. So it gives you like 40% and then gives you like even more, right? And then ensures your next attack will be crit. Generally, I don't like this stuff, but however, its passive works very well with it. Critical focus. Every time you crit, it's +1 on your own like crit, right? So you get a guaranteed crit, and then you're at 50% chance to crit, and you get another guaranteed crit, and then you're at like 80% chance to crit, and then like you're out of like guaranteed crits, right? But then, you know, as long as you land one more with an 80% chance, you'll get max crit, right? So that's always nice to have in general. Or you could just use a support and it just increases crit. Same thing, right? Also, you could also save returns, just go for an attack instead. But anyways, it's okay. It's okay. It just doesn't do like really great, you know, damage. But it's an overall decent unit. Moving on for Alligator. For Alligator is it's B tier. I don't know. It's borderline, honestly. For Alligator, doesn't have really good offensive stats, unfortunately. However, it does make up for the insane amounts of damage that Mega Kick does. Scroll, please. There we go. There's always that, and also with supports, like 250. Like people meme on Ethan's special attack, yet like, you know, for Alligator's attack is just here. I mean, 257. But you know, Mega Kick 167 power, 200 when you max it out. I get bad accuracy, but you could always fix that with Sabrina or Sings with Lisa, and it's just like insane, just straight up, just really good damage, and it does have endurance, which is always nice as well. So it's a solid unit. Moving on. Do we even have? Oh yeah. Toucannon. I don't know what else to say. Toucannon's bad. It's kind of like Avalog, but like slightly more useful because like it's flying type, I guess. And it's just slightly better than Avalog overall, because Toucannon actually has like Toucannon has like much better offensive stats than Avalog, because like these are like very much comparable. Let's see, 316 at 3 stars, and then Toucannon's at like 401 at 4 stars, right? So yeah, it's not really close. That's not really close in terms of the, all that stuff, and good defenses as well. The burn thing, again, completely pointless. Wait, did I say the burn for Avalog? No, Avalog Avalanche is like double the power. I might have mentioned burn. No, B-class is burn. I think I got accidentally confused. But yeah, Avalanche is double the damage, which again, completely pointless. It's never going to happen. I won't say never going to happen, but very, very unlikely it's going to happen. And then for Toucan, all same thing. You're a striker. You don't want to tank with it. Even though you have like decent defense stats, you still don't want to tank with it, right? You don't want your striker to go down. Moving on, you got Mudsdale. Maybe E, I guess. Mudsdale has some like good stuff going for it. Also some like critical flaws as well. One of those flaws being its speed. 156 speed is kind of right? Does it really make up for its bad speed other places? The page is not loading, so it could kind of like ruin my flow, but no, it doesn't. Its attack is pretty pathetic, even at 5 stars, right? Does have high horsepower, which is a solid move, but overall it's not really that great. It has good defenses and has like defensive buffs as well, but yeah, it's again doesn't do too much damage. Plus, it's speed's really bad. Moving on. Oh, Mewtwo. That's the last one. Mewtwo's ass as well. Mewtwo does good damage. Like, it has really, really good special attack, right? Mewtwo does die a lot, which is slightly unfortunate. Has good speed as well, and also both ghost and psychic type coverage. So not much to, Mewtwo's Mewtwo. Everyone knows what Mewtwo does, right? Just solid striker with with really good stats and type coverage. So, anyways, since I don't know why, finally loaded. Well, no one cares about you anymore. Well, that's me for this one. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Like and enjoyed this video, subscribe to our channel for some more Pokemon Masters content. I'll see you guys in the next one.